Today we're talking about money. We are often all in burlesque for one of many reasons, but one of those unified reasons that often many of us share is for money. Whether that means that we want to do burlesque as a career and make actual money for it to pay our bills and to sustain ourselves, or if we want to just make sure we're getting paid, even if it is a hobby. Money is something that is incredibly important for us to talk about when it comes to burlesque. Even though burlesque has blown up so much since the 90s and it's continuing to grow and go in ebbs and flows, we might still have people who don't understand the value of burlesque. Or if a corporation wants to do a private event and hire a burlesque performer, why does it cost a couple $100s, especially if it's for a holiday? Even if you perform once or a few times a year, you need to make sure you're getting paid, not only for yourself so that you can sustain yourself. As we all know, costumes are expensive, and for those of us who perform burlesque outside of a hobby and who do it as part of our actual income and as part of our professional lives, then obviously we want to make sure we're getting paid. And the more that we know about our own industry and payment, the easier it is for us to have these conversations when producers reach out to us to perform in their events. And the more confident that we are talking about money, the more easily it is for us to set those standards across the board. And in order to do that as well, when we are getting paid and we're not just pouring money into our craft, not making money back from performing, we can burn out really easily. Burnout is very, very common in burlesque. There's always going to be that balance of finding out what's worth your energy and your time and your finances to do burlesque, because it is a huge industry at the end of the day, and there's going to be many facets to it and many different avenues to go down, and that is going to really impact yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. And you want to make sure that you're not draining your resources. At the end of the day, even when burlesque is a profession for many of us, we want to make sure we're still enjoying it, and we want to make sure that we're not having an unhealthy amount of stress. When we're being financially compensated, that's not going to answer all of our potential paths or potential missteps that we might come across, but it will definitely help with different areas, specifically so we know we're not going to be financially having as much trouble with it. When we understand why payment is important and why it's important that we make sure we're getting paid, then point number one, as you can probably assume, get paid. I am somebody who often advocates for getting paid and making sure that you have a set rate and make sure that you have a minimum payment of what to expect for shows. I have a video that talks about all the things you should expect when you're hired at the time of hire with a producer, and any questions you should have clarified before you accept a gig. And I'm gonna just have that little video somewhere in the universe here. But for now, just make sure you're getting paid, whether that is for a community show, a private event, even if it's for a fundraiser. There's gonna be a lot of people who have a fundraiser rate. Some performers are going to choose to donate their funds to whatever the fundraiser is for, which is absolutely fine, but that gives you, the performer, the power and makes you feel empowered to make that choice, rather than what we tend to see in a lot of shows where there's going to be a lot of producers who have these fundraisers who will not pay performers, and they justify it because it's a fundraiser, and so they want all the money from that show to go to whatever that charity is or organization is that they're raising money for. Not saying that you shouldn't be excited to raise money for communities and organizations and charities, but ultimately you should also make sure that your performers agree with that. There's been a lot of times when I've been in fundraisers and I've been paid more than what my fundraising rate is, and there's been times when it's a cause that I really believe in where I've been like, you know what, I'm happy to perform for free, thank you so much for your offer, but I would like to donate my money back to the cause that you're fundraising for. Performers who might be performing internationally, if you're from the United States and coming to Canada, or if you're in Canada going to the United States or to Europe or to Australia or wherever you want to perform in the world that may or may not be in your home country. This is for both producers and performers. Make sure you know what currency you are either paying your performers in, or if you're a performer, know what currency you're getting paid in. As a producer, I have my own general rule where if I bring performers in from the United States, I'm making sure I'm quoting them in American dollars. And as a performer, if I travel, I just really like to know that. Again, I'll ask the producer, being like, how much are you going to pay? How are you going to pay? And this way I know that for myself, I can make sure to prepare whatever I need to. Sometimes that means I get paid more. There's been times when I travel to the United States to perform. If you have a contract, make sure you have written how you're getting paid, in what currency, so you know what to expect, and you don't arrive with expectations and maybe have those completely not match what you hope they do. And I've already touched on this a little bit, but make sure to set your rates. There's multiple ways that you can do that. I will have another another video in the future shortly talking about setting your weights and some of the basics to know, and that video, once it's ready, again, I'll have it popped up here for you to watch at your own leisure. How do you view yourself compared to other performers? One of the most common things that we say is to not compare yourself to other performers or other people, especially with social media, because social media shows a lot of one side of a human, and there's the whole other side that we do not see, and usually we try to highlight our best selves on social media, and that can be really draining. But in terms of money and finances, there's going to be times when you have to look at your other community members. And again, I will go into depth a lot more in my future video, so keep an eye out and make sure you're subscribed and hitting that notification bell down below to make sure you get updated as soon as that video and others drop. Make sure you are not undercutting any other performers. Undercutting is a very common thing we see in any industry where there's a whole element of independence for contractors or for creatives, and it's really a lot sometimes to really think about that and to think about, how do I make sure I'm getting my worth? Or if I'm new, maybe I feel only comfortable with charging this much, when maybe I want to be a little bit more experienced or feel more confident in my burlesque before I start charging what I want to make. And that's totally normal and totally understandable and fair. Everyone's going to have their different understandings. Again, this is why I think it's really important to talk to your local communities, and even people who are outside of your local communities, because if the standard in your town is $100 or $150 and you are getting paid $75, not only is it not fair to you because you're getting paid less, but it's also taking away those gigs and those opportunities when people think, why would I bother hiring this performer for $150 or $200 when I can pay $75 for this person or $20 for that person? And it's really not fair to anybody in the end, except for maybe the producer, to help set our standard across the industry so that everybody is getting paid fairly. It's really important that we can keep that standard up with each other, so then we can make sure we're not undercutting people and taking potential gigs or teaching opportunities from other people. There are going to be times when things will be less expensive and will be more affordable if it's something that you see needing to be done in your community, if things are really expensive, but it is something to keep in mind. And in addition, when you are charging and you're setting your rates and you're getting hired for gigs, especially with new producers, new to you producers, very basic level, if you're setting rates, have multiple rates. Those are going to look like very different things for, say, a community show. This is my standard rate. If you're working any events for holidays or private events or corporate events, that you are getting paid much more than what you would get for a community show. What I would recommend as standard is doubling your rate for any private events, any holiday events. That's how you make the big dollars. Sometimes people will triple their rates, some people will double, but generally in that kind of ballpark. Those shows you expect to do better because everybody wants to go out and party for New Year's or Halloween or Christmas or whatever. Make sure you are setting your higher rates so that you're keeping up with your local community and the industry standard, and also so you're not undercutting and kind of wrapping everything together that we've already talked about. It can be very difficult to keep track of multiple expenses, especially if you are teaching and having classes or workshops or private one-on-one sessions or all of these different services that you may offer. When you track your expenses, you can track how much you're spending in burlesque, whether that's on costume pieces, if you want to track how much you spend on just attending shows to watch, or how much it costs you to travel if you travel for burlesque. Then you can make sure you can create budgets, and also how much have you made. I keep track of every single show I've been in and how much I've gotten paid, who the producers were of what shows, and anything that I really think is important to know for myself, because I am somebody who really likes data. At the end of each year, I can track all my expenses and have a little beautiful chart that says how my expenses have bounced from year to year and how my income has bounced. That actually helps me, not only because it looks cool, but it helps me track my own financial growth. Right before the pandemic, my expenses and the profit I was making from burlesque was tripled from my second or third year, and each year it was getting noticeably higher. And then you can see really if you are getting burned out or tired, or if you don't have the finances to keep up in burlesque, then you can find out where you are willing to maybe make sacrifices, or where you're willing to cut back in burlesque a little bit more. Again, if you have your own rate, if you charge that flat rate, then you can perform less for the similar amount of money, when really you should be making sure that you are surviving in burlesque and not just barely surviving, but you're exceeding your expectations. If it's something interesting to you, is have a savings plan. I actually have a Burlesque bank account, and every month I put, for my regular earnings from my daily job, I put a certain amount in as if it was savings, but it's for Burlesque. And I also put everything I make from Burlesque, for every performance, every teaching gig I've had, every private workshop I've had, all my money goes straight into there, and anything I spend on Burlesque comes out of there. The reason I put money in now, especially from my daily work, is so I can make sure I'm still putting money into it even when we have things like no shows happening. That way I can really create savings plans, and I can make sure I'm not taking too much money out of my real daily life that I need for my own rent and food and expenses. I'm starting to self-sustain myself in Burlesque. And to add on to that last point, you are going to eventually want to think about how, where, and when you want to invest in Burlesque. When you invest in Burlesque, you're investing in things like your costume or upgrades or choreography or private workshopping, history and reading history books and learning about where we came from. When you're newer, you're probably going to want to invest more in the choreography aspect, invest in your costume pieces, and later on you might eventually think, okay, now I want to travel, now I'm ready, I'm going to invest in business cards, I'm going to invest in a website, I'm going to put my money into traveling, and I'm going to put my money into upgrading my act. Investing in Burlesque and knowing when you want to take a break and knowing when you want to spend money can really help with that savings plan and help you to create whatever you want with Burlesque. This is a pretty big list of basic standard money things to talk about. There's a lot more different things we could talk about, but I will go into depth in specific videos with other money gabbing, talking, jabba jabba. For now, I really hope that this video helped you, and if you have experience or thoughts on money or questions, I would love to see them down below. What are some things that you think are important for performers to know about when it comes to money on a basic level? Do you have advice, or do you have insights, or even questions? I would love to see them down below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye!